This is a video interview with Dal Burns, who is a writer, storyteller, actor, post-geek technotype, and host of other titles I don't have time to go into. Hello, Dal.
Hello.
So, why did you become a writer?
Well, that's often a difficult question to answer, all things considered.
Stop being stuffy. You're not that kind of writer. Just answer the question. Why did you become a writer?
I'm not really sure that I am a writer or an author. I think I'm a storyteller. I learned so many stories, especially in the bush of Australia. At night, we told stories by the campfire. And I learned so many stories that, for me, writing is an extension of just telling those stories all over again.
Tell me about your ebook, Alien Race.
That book started with a bet. I was in a bar with a friend of mine and we were having a drink, and she bet me $100 that I could not write a story in 2 weeks if she were to give me the very last line. So I went home and I wrote like crazy. The story began basically with the conflict between two men, and the two of them at the very low level of the story are fighting. They don't agree with one another. On a second level, I was looking at the conflict we have as a society with technology and with culture. For the rest, go to Amazon Kindle or to Barnes & Noble Nook, and it's 99 cents.
What else have you written?
I had a one-man play, which was called Outback, which I produced in San Francisco with the help of John Provost from The Lassie Show, and we eventually turned that into an audiobook, which is now on iTunes, and it's on Amazon MP3, and it's also on Amazon.com. I was asked by a local cultural arts group to put on a radio play with my actors. And of course, as soon as I put the phone down, I forgot entirely that I was supposed to get my actors together. So when the company called back 2 weeks before the show and said, "How's your radio play going? Your 35 minutes for our cultural event," I said, "It's going great, wonderful." And I put the phone down and I said, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" So I sat up late one night and I put a 35-minute piece together in about 6 hours with a couple of songs thrown into it, gave a tape to one of the instructors and said, "If you ever want to play the piano in this building again," and we put it on the stage, and it was so well received that we turned it into a full-length one-man play and ran it for 5 years until it became an audiobook. People wanted something for the younger audience, for children, and so I wrote The Kookaburra and Other Stories and turned it into an audio CD, which I narrate. That became the full-length book of 23 stories of the Kookaburra. They are inspired by my time in the Australian bush. Now, some of these things will turn up on YouTube with me narrating them, and they will show up on my website, dramaworksinc.com, which is where you can look at some of these things. The Adventures of Foo, where a friend of a friend came to me and showed me a series of paintings that she had done. And this is one of the paintings. And she said, "This is my petit fou, my little fool. I wonder if you could write his story for him." How on earth would I do that? Still, here's a story, here's a challenge. So I took the paintings and I went home with them, and over a period of about 6 months, I built the stories behind Foo. I was writing one evening when I heard a voice over my left shoulder, and that voice said, "Excuse me, that's not exactly how it happened." And the voice over my right shoulder said, "Would you mind terribly if we told you how it happened?" And from there, the two characters wrote the story themselves. And also there was a story about my horse, which will be on my blog, dalburnswrites.com. I'm going to put short stories up there, stories that I've written, stories that I'm going to write, just for the love of them. And one of those stories that is showing right now is called Soy Peruana Bella, the story of a Peruvian Paso mare. That will be on my my blog site.
Is there anything in the works right now?
The Neighbor's Cat. I have a friend named Carrie who wanted me to write a story about a very special cat who she owned. And I sat and thought about that for a long time. How do you write a story about a cat that hasn't been overused? And one day I was just kicking this around in my mind when I remembered a Victorian parlour game based around a cat. And from that moment it was on. The illustrations are being put together now, and I'm hoping to have that book out late fall, Thanksgiving, Christmas time this year. I have a couple of other books that I'm working on, another illustrated book for kids, and then a story about an alternate universe.
Do you have anything on the internet for people to see and read?
My blog is dalburnswrites.com. That's where my short stories will be residing. And I have a Twitter account, of course, @dalburns, where I post humorous slang and little stories and so on and so forth. If someone wants to see examples of my work, they can go to the publishing website, dramaworksinc.com, where audio clips and short examples of my writing are available.